Imagine a world that ended long before history began. A world of cities higher than mountains, where people read the stars like sacred books. They said the world had already ended once, and it would end again. They left warnings in stone, buried messages under mountains, and turned their memory into myths. But we forgot. And now, the same signs they feared are beginning to appear once more. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear isn't fantasy. It's the story of a civilization that remembered the end of the world and tried to warn us. Before the birth of kings, before the rise of Egypt, before writing or recorded time, there lived a people who called themselves the keepers of memory. They believed the earth had lived many lives, and each life ended when humans forgot who they were. They said the greatest danger wasn't war or flood. It was forgetting. In their stories, humans once walked with the stars and could feel the heartbeat of the earth. They lived in balance. But as pride grew, they turned away from the sky and forgot the rhythm of creation. And then, the world began to shake. Their stones tell of a light in the sky, brighter than the sun, followed by years of darkness. The oceans rose. The winds carried ash. The world fell silent, yet some survived. They carried the memory of the end and swore an oath. The next world would not forget. So they began again. They built the first temples not as homes for gods, but as warnings. Each stone pointed to the stars, a clock in the heavens, a message for those who would come after. Ages passed. The memory faded. The survivors became legends. But their stones remained. In South America, walls of stone rise without mortar, with no tool marks, only perfect design. The builders said they were following the patterns of the ancestors, who had told them the stars had moved once before. And when they moved again, the earth would tremble. Across the ocean, Egypt rose from the sands. The Great Pyramids were built not just as tombs, but as mirrors of the sky. Their layout perfectly matches the stars of Orion, the same pattern found in Mexico, half a world away. How could they both know? Perhaps they were guided by the same ancient memory. And far away, in Turkey, stands Göbekli Tepe, older than any known civilization, carved with animals, stars, and sacred signs. Scientists say it was built over 10,000 years ago at the end of the last ice age, a time of global flood and chaos. Why would people, just learning to farm, build something so vast and complex? Because they weren't starting from nothing. They were remembering. Every spiral, every sun, every serpent carved in stone was a language of warning, a message. We have seen the end before. It will come again. Every ancient culture tells of a great flood. The Sumerians called it the flood of Ziusudra. The Bible calls it the flood of Noah. The Maya called it the flood that ended the fourth world. The Hindus wrote of Manu, who built a boat to survive the waters. Different names, same story. A flood that erased the earth. For centuries, these stories were dismissed as myths. But now, under the sea, off the coasts of India, Japan, and the Mediterranean, lie the ruins of cities swallowed by the ocean. Science confirms that around 12,000 years ago, the world changed suddenly. Glaciers melted, the seas rose, and the climate shifted in a single lifetime. The flood was real. Those who lived through it carried the memory forward, passing it down as a warning. It wasn't a story of punishment, but a story of survival. They wanted us to remember that the earth moves in cycles and that destruction isn't the end, but part of the rhythm of time. The ancients watched the heavens. They knew that what happens above shapes what happens below. They tracked the stars not for worship, but for survival. In their carvings, one symbol repeats across cultures, a serpent swallowing its own tail. To them, it wasn't evil. It was time itself. A circle without end. Some researchers believe this symbol describes a great celestial event, a comet or fragments of one that struck the Earth and ended the world before ours. Whether that is true or not, they wanted us to remember that the heavens can change everything. Stonehenge, the pyramids, ancient temples all across the globe. All were built to align with the rising sun and with rare events in the sky. These alignments aren't random. They are cosmic clocks, reminders of a cycle turning. And if the pattern is real, that clock may be turning once again. Our ancestors hid truth inside stories, knowing that stories last longer than empires. Atlantis, the island that sank in a single night. Plato said it was destroyed by water. For centuries, people called it a dream. But maybe Atlantis wasn't one city. Maybe it was every city that vanished when the last world ended. Other tales tell the same truth. The lost island of Mu, the drowned land of Lemuria, the kingdoms of the north swallowed by ice. Every story carries a warning about pride, about forgetting, and about destruction. Perhaps these are not separate myths, but fractured memories of one forgotten world, a civilization that remembered the end and tried to make sure we would not forget again. What if they knew we would forget? What if they built messages that could outlast even memory itself? Take the Great Pyramid. We call it a tomb, but it is so much more. Its base is aligned to true north with incredible precision. Its height and perimeter encode fundamental constants of our planet. Its very shape mirrors the Earth's own geometry. It speaks in the universal language of mathematics. Many ancient sites share this code, numbers that link the Earth, the Moon, and the Sun, a message written in harmony. Perhaps they were telling us how to stay in balance, how to keep the rhythm of creation alive. Today, we see these sites as mysteries, but they may have seen them as warnings. They wanted us to look up, to remember that the heavens move, and that when they move, the earth follows. After the flood, after the fire from the sky, the survivors began again. Their knowledge was vast, but their numbers were few. They taught what they could. They showed others how to build, how to plant, how to mark the stars. Then, slowly, they disappeared. The world forgot them. Their temples turned to dust, and their names faded from memory. Only their stones remained, silent, unbroken, and patient. We walk among them now, wondering how they could have built such wonders. But maybe we are asking the wrong question. Maybe the real question is not how they built them, but why they built them for us. They built them because they knew one day the cycle would turn again, and when it did, we would need to remember. Today, our world feels powerful. We can fly. We can split atoms. We can reach for the stars. We believe we control nature. But the old stories whisper another truth. When humans forget their place, the earth reminds them. Our oceans are rising, our climate is changing, the ice is melting again. The same signs that marked the last great destruction are appearing once more. Maybe the end they feared wasn't a sudden fire or flood. Maybe it was the slow loss of balance, the slow forgetting of who we are. The ancients said the danger begins when people stop listening, when they believe they are separate from the earth that gives them life. If that's true, then we stand at the edge of the same circle they once faced. And once again, the choice is ours. The people who remembered the end did not want to frighten us. They wanted to remind us that creation and destruction are part of the same breath. Every temple, every myth, every star-aligned stone carries the same message. Remember who you are. Remember where you came from. Remember that the world can begin again. They believed that memory itself could save us, that if we just remembered the past, we could escape the same fate. Maybe that is why you are hearing this story now. Because it has waited in silence for someone to finally listen. When you look at the stars tonight, think of those who watched them so long ago. They weren't gods or magicians. They were people, just like us. They saw their world end, and they tried to save ours. They couldn't stop the cycle, but they left a message. That message is written in stone, in myth, and in memory. It says, "The world remembers, even when we forget." If this story touched something in you, a sense that we are part of something older and greater, then keep searching, keep questioning, keep remembering. Because that is what they wanted us to do, to remember the end, so that we may protect the beginning. Thanks for watching. If you found this meaningful, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more journeys into our forgotten past.